Well, that was so much more than just a reading, that incredible piece. And now we're going to open this up for a post-show discussion. I want to let you know that you can actually submit questions through the YouTube chat, and we'll be monitoring that, so please do participate. But right now I want to turn it over to our wonderful playwright for the evening, Ayanna Blake.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in this evening. What a great night. I'm so excited to be able to showcase my work, Blight, such an important topic for our time. And I want to share some wonderful women that have helped me put this together tonight. And this is Angelisa Gillyard, and she directed our piece tonight. Love on her, please. Give lots of hearts and likes, and yes, girl. And our Samantha, played by the awesomely talented Amber Gibson. Ow! Lots of hearts, y'all. Amber did her thing. And our Erica and her just amazing gift, played by Tiana Thomas. Love on Tiana, y'all.
Yes.
And our facilitator for the night is Jules Jesse, and she is going to guide us through the conversation tonight. So again, if you have questions, ask them. We'll try to answer all of them. We'll try not to be here all night because a girl got to eat. But send all your questions and let's talk. Jules.
Well, let's talk. Ladies, again, thank you for allowing me to be in your space and really to participate and be a part of this beautiful moment. I mean, I was watching the depiction and just couldn't think about how realistic that was, and how that story really is translating right now, right before us. I mean, I'm having conversations with neighbors right now about this, about gentrification and that collide with racism. So let's talk to you first, the creator. What was the insight? What was the foresight that you had that you wanted to bring this story to the forefront for people to see?
Well, when Laura told me about the difficult conversations, she said, okay, I want you to be involved and let me know if you have a piece. I said, okay, well, I'll throw my hat in there. Okay, didn't have nothing. But immediately after I got off the phone with her, I saw two women, and the story happened for me in my mind in 10 minutes, Bible. Okay. And from that, I just started thinking about my neighborhood. I grew up in Arlington County, just down the road, and the Knock community, yes, and how it has changed so much. And Auntie so-and-so's house that everybody knows is not Auntie so-and-so's house. It's Miss White Lady that nobody knows. And the community is just so different. And so it became very near and dear to my heart because as I drive through the Knock community, it has totally changed. It's unrecognizable. And so I just wanted to shed some light on what's happening with our time. Of course, we can't, not see what's happening on the news. And I wanted to be relevant, so that's what happened.
I think you accomplished the relevancy. I think everyone who's watching would agree with that.
Thank you.
I want to talk to our character, Erica. Erica, as I was watching you, you really brought to life a character that we see so many single black mothers epitomize right now. I mean, you are the truth walking in front of us. Where were you able to kind of dig deep and get that inspiration from? Is this a story that you know? And how does this personally affect you? Where did you draw that from?
All right, let me make sure I'm answering the question.
Sorry, that's a loaded question. So you can take it piece by piece how you want to.
All right, I'm gonna try to be succinct. I came to DC in 2010 to go to Howard University, so I'm not a Washingtonian, but I'm not going to even say I fell in love with the city, but I really did fall in love with the people here, because it was like I came from a community where you just didn't see Black communities thriving in the way that I saw in DC. It was like, wow, it was such a strong Black community. And since 2010, since I've been here, I've witnessed changes in my neighborhood, changes at Howard University. It was, whoa. And now I work in the public charter school system in DC. And so it is personal, because it's like, these are the families that I deal with. And they deal with these type of crises all the time. I mean, I've experienced the increase. I went from a $650 rent to a $1,700 rent. It's like that, that's not an easy adjustment to go from. Increase. And that's just the reality of the situation. So I see it from my own pocket standpoint, and it's like, oh my goodness, like, how do you afford to live in DC? I got a master's degree, and I am trying to figure out, like, what is the secret to figuring this out? And then another thing is, I work with these families. And when you think about the education aspect and how the children are impacted, how their education is impacted because of the stress that they are being passed down from their parents who are trying to figure these things out, it's a lot. So it's very much real, a real lived experience.
Thank you for that. I want to talk to our Samantha. And, Samantha, I think...
Wait, thank you. I have to say thank you. Amber played the heck out of Samantha. Y'all better love on Amber. She is a sweetie pie.
Leave Amber alone in these streets.
Leave Amber alone in these streets.
She's not that neighbor.
I strive very hard to not be that neighbor.
Well, it's funny that you're really an ally, right? Because you're here to tell that story, and we appreciate that. You're sitting alongside, just right now for Black women, and you're here to kind of tell the scary the scary side of that story. I live in a community that's actively being gentrified, in a community that is actively being classed out. To her point, she even has a master's degree. How does it feel being on that other side and having to really tell that story? Where do you pull that from, and what is your contribution to the culture? What is your contribution to really telling this story and making sure that it's told in the right way?
So it's funny, because when Ayanna reached out to me with the overview of the play, I was like, oh no, I'm the villain. And I did have a moment of, I'll be honest with you, I had a moment of like, is this something that I want to do? Because I knew, like, I'm not playing the person who's experiencing gentrification. I'll be playing the gentrifier. And I had a moment where I told my housemates, we bought a house this year in DC. It took 3 of us to do it, but we bought in Tacoma. It was actually specifically important to us that we were not buying from someone who we felt was moving because they had to. It was someone who was moving down to Florida. And like, it was important to us that we didn't feel like we were displacing anyone. But I had that like pang of conscience of like, oh no, people will see me. And I realized that like, no, it's important. It's important that white women be willing to play the worst of us in some ways, but also I wanted to, because Ayanna has done a good job of, you see her at least trying to reach out, and when she's met with aggression, she does white lady tears, white female tears, and it kind of just shuts everything down. And it's amazing that these women are able to come together in some way in the end. But all that to say, I read a lot, I watch a lot. I lived in Petworth for 3 years, and I live now kind of on the Brightwood-Tacoma border. And it's interesting because there's a lot of conversations going on about Kennedy and Fifth Street. There have been a lot of shootings, and it's so easy to have that perspective. It's the easy choice to have the perspective of like, well, of course people want to fix things up. You people are killing each other. It's such an easy perspective to take instead of saying, oh no, the pandemic has been hard on people. Consider why people are in alleys. Consider why there are these groups of men hanging out, which there are. I mean, it is a thing that like I literally do see in my community, and you have to take the time. You can't be someone to be passive and just judge them. You actually have to say, good morning, hello, how are you? Like having conversations. And so all that to say, I tried to play the best parts of Samantha as well as like I would want the intentions to be played, but the reality is there are lots and lots and lots of white women who do feel this way. And I thought it was important to, if only for 15 minutes, give life to that on stage.
You did well. Thank you. The issue of gentrification affects different racial groups, right? And it's disproportionately affects the African American community. And it's particularly relevant right now because we are facing a global pandemic, and we are, really seeing a lot of things being dismantled and really kind of the breath of life being kind of taken in a different direction. When directing this play, there is a clash between this idea of housing instability and gentrification and racism. What did you do in order to direct these women to make sure that this story came off the page?
Well, first, thank you. First, thank you, Ayanna, for writing such a great play. I mean, it leapt off the page for me just reading it. Mm-hmm. As we talked, through the rehearsal process, one of the things that we decided was that for Erica's character, we were not going to pigeonhole her. Mm-hmm. We came up with a number of scenarios in terms of why she was even in the situation she was in. Maybe her husband died, fighting overseas, and he was in the military. So instead of going with what we tend to think of as the stereotypical single, black mother, here's a woman, I mean, clearly, if she's paying her rent on time every month, no assistance, that there's something else underlying, and that's what we were trying to get at. That it's not just the quote unquote stereotypical people that you think that this happens to. That this could literally happen to anyone. You could have a graduate degree and have a good job, but it's just not good enough because of the rising rents, and income is not rising at the same rate. And you can be in that situation, So we try to go deeper than just, the easy way to think about this situation. We try to go deeper and into the characters. And so I think that aided these two fantastic actors to bring their characters to life.
I couldn't agree with you more. There was an argument in the scene that I thought was very realistic, and I pose this question to anyone who wants to kind of take a stab or even just some contribution, some thoughts to this. There was a conversation, and it speaks directly to the stereotypes you brought up, in that I am here, I don't, I'm not on government assistance, I do pay my rent, and she, the character of Erica brought up that there was this huge divestment in the community, and that these individuals were working to try to get a park for, the last X number of years. And here comes Samantha, and all of a sudden there's this huge investment into the community, and that's true. And Erica brought up a very valid point that a lot of our elected officials, we can have these conversations with them. We can have these community meetings, over and over again. And it's not until our white counterparts come in that these investments are to be made. What do we have to say about the realism that actually is happening? How do we speak truth to power so that there is an investment in the community to communities that are disadvantaged? And disadvantaged historically. I mean, we are battling right now for trying to win a race that we're 400 years behind. So what do we do? I mean, we're talking about issues of redlining that has been in the past, or, Black people were considered risky and couldn't get loans at banks and things like that. So what is the conversation now? Because this is, while it's a play, it is actually real life.
I think I love Samantha's character because, ironically, I had similar thoughts in high school about Black folks in our community, just kind of like, well, how are y'all gonna ask for other stuff and y'all running stuff, just a mess. And I read this book a few years ago called The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein, and it changed my life. And it outlines literally how local, state, and federal governments purposefully segregated America. It talks about how they built the highway systems and purposefully destroyed Black communities. When I tell you, even when we talk about the loan situation, and I mentioned I tried to get a loan twice, and we think about the GI Bill and how they help veterans. And it was literally at one point law that they were not going to give Black folks a mortgage or a GI Bill. Mm-hmm. So when my white counterparts have grandparents that have equity in homes and they can pull from that equity to put a down payment on a house or to send them to college, and I'm wondering, like, how come this is not an option for my family? There's so much information that's not taught to us. So I always used to wonder, like, how are Black people crowded in the projects? Like, do we all just want to be beside each other? Do we want to just hang in the neighborhoods with our friends? Because that's the narrative that we're taught, that Black people just live in these communities together because they like being around each other. And the truth is like there's such a deep history of strategic and intentional moves that were made by government officials. So it's like it's like the solutions, if you literally see what they did, then reverse the harm that they caused. But a lot of us don't know the harm that has been caused.
I will say, so 2 examples of personal experience. I mentioned we bought a home this year. We went searching for the original deed to the home. Mm-hmm. We found the original deed to the home. We read the original deed to the home. The original deed to the home is super racist. It literally says, my house was built in 1922. This property shall never be sold to persons of African descent, and then it lists a whole list of minorities that this house will never be sold to in DC, in Tacoma, DC. And it wasn't until literally the 60s that they were required to strip that language out of the deed. I mean, that's so bonkers. And it wasn't just in my neighborhood. It was all over DC, all over the United States. It's nuts. Also, when I moved into Petworth and I was renting, we had a rat problem. And I got to know our neighbors really well, William and Laura. I loved them. And we couldn't get the city to come out, and William said...
Wait, was William Black?
He was.
Okay, don't leave that
Sorry,
out.
Missed that part. William said, would y'all mind calling? Because they'll come out for a white person. And we did call, and guess what? They did come out. And that was so eye-opening and disappointing. It's so easy to think like, oh yeah, well, white people are privileged, but like we are. And people literally do provide government services to white people differently. And it's fascinating, honestly.
Do we have any questions from our live audience? Let's bring them into the fold. We want to bring you guys into the conversation.
We have many questions from our 150 viewers this evening.
Hey, y'all. Thank you.
In email, we also have a lot of praise that I want to share. Sing Tiana, what beautiful voices. These actresses are great. Wow, just wow. Tears. Iyona, this is a mesmerizing and powerful piece, and I will say that we have, I think, 8 comments saying, when can we see the full-length play? So I just wanted to
When can we see the full-length play,
When can we see the full-length play?
Well, I was in the shower this week and got the rest of the show in my mind, so I just got to put it on paper. Pray, saints.
Come on, the vision
Is it gonna be
there.
a musical, Ayanna? There's already music in this, and this is my question.
It can be. You know, music pours out of my veins.
I do know.
Music is
High
also a
stakes.
great way to unify. So it could be a great way, it's like bringing the souls together.
Oh my. Well, since you mentioned that, as the musician in me, music is such a universal language. And so when I heard in my mind that Erica sings at the end, Pass Me Not, of course I'm a good Baptist girl and the hymns of the church staples, right? So when I heard Erica singing that at the end, I said, wait a minute, Samantha would know this as well. And so I wanted to make sure that there was some kind of familiarity in the war of space, race, housing, some kind of familiarity, and what could be more unifying, should I say, than music? And so at the end, we don't know if they're friends, but we see that there's something that draws them together, and that was the hymn of the church. You all did a great job. Thank you.
Very good job.
All right, Ellen.
Okay, all right, here we go. This one's from an email. What is the significance of the clothesline for both story and the topic of gentrification? They're a smart audience. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, so I wanted it to be very realistic. Although, did you say you had never?
I have never used a clothes.
This young baby had the nerve to say she had never worked a clothesline. So then I said, well, damn, am I dating myself?
No.
Okay.
I've used the clothesline.
Okay. So I wanted it to be a place, because as a mother, we take pride in washing clothes. So that is, a story all by itself, And, she's caring for her children, and laundry is something that we hold dear. Well, I know I do. Fold and put away, right? And so in that, I wanted her to really show, even though Samantha highlights her kids being unattended and all of those things, the different ways that we care for our children. So I wanted to really highlight that, and then I wanted to use the clothesline as the barrier when Erica and Samantha couldn't succeed with the cones. Erica then uses the clothesline to draw that separation and that divide. And then at the end, I really wanted them to, with the permission of director, I really wanted to show that, because at first they had gotten so comfortable, because Samantha had even come to the other side the other night in rehearsal, and I said, wait a minute, hold on, wait, no. That's not real. I don't feel that in the story. So I really want you to stay on the other side and really show that 2021 divide, and allow the clothesline, something that we hold so near and dear, to really be that separation. Talk around it, talk over it, but we're never going to come between, because that's 2021. That was the image that I had. Did that answer that? Okay, cool.
This is an issue, I think it's gentrification, in cities across America. We have to work together so each family can get out and become homeowners. So what more can we as citizens do? Now that's a lot, but any ideas?
Write your people. Write your if you are in DC, write your council people. Janice Lewis George, who I'm obsessed with, is my councilperson for Ward 4. And she is a Petworth native, and one of her biggest platforms when she ran was affordable housing, and specifically, you know, allowing people to become new homeowners. But you know, the council can pass something, but then it eventually does need support. And your council people, if you're in Arlington, if you're in DC, especially if you're in DC, because we don't have representation in Congress. Hello. And that's super racist that we don't, that specifically. Write your council people, write your local, like, neighborhood chapter, like, we want this, because the way city budgets get passed is really, really boring, and it takes community engagement. When you see those little surveys from Arlington County or from Fairfax that are like, talk about community issues, there are often places you can say, like, what priorities would you like to see in this next year's budget? And you can literally say, affordable housing. Please give us affordable housing. Please write your people, because it's a huge issue. Yeah, sorry for yelling.
I don't know if I'm allowed to answer that.
Absolutely.
So the issue when we talk about affordable housing, specifically in DC, is what is really affordable, right? And so now we have what's called an MFI, and there's a certain number of, or a certain dollar amount that a family of four can make that's deemed affordable, and it's really not affordable. And if you think about it, we are still very much living paycheck to paycheck. And I'll definitely say that I am a fan of, you know, the freshman council member. My council member Trayon White,
yes,
we have really been at the forefront and having our boots on the ground at really bringing community engagement. And I think that the pandemic has really showed us that using virtual conferences has really expanded the conversation, where people can be cooking and taking care of their kids and doing laundry and, you know, and helping with homework and still being engaged. And it takes more than just writing a letter, right? And so oftentimes people are like, well, I pay my taxes and I sent an email and I posted an angry tweet that said I wanted this, but they didn't show up to a hearing. And so now, because the hearings are virtual, they can schedule and sit in on Zoom and still be at their desk from 9 to 5 and be able to have their voice heard, or they can send in a statement. But it really takes knowing your neighbors. I mean, at the end of, you know, the play, you guys had an opportunity to bond and unify. It takes knowing your neighbors and keeping your foot on the gas. And oftentimes I tell our residents that you can't show up to one meeting and think that things are going to change. You have to show up to every meeting. And it shouldn't be that hard, right? But it is. And it's an uphill battle, and it takes more than just, you know, kind of pandering your elected official, but really showing up to developer meetings and talking to your commissioner, your community, your neighborhood commissioner who signs those community benefits agreements that say, yes, this developer can come in and put in a new school, or they can come in and put in, you know, a 250 room hotel where you know that we really need condominiums, or we really need houses, but we don't need houses with 2 bedrooms, we need houses with 4, because this is a mother with 4 kids. And so we know that the disinvestment has been there, and we need to be able to correct that and dismantle these systems and really show up and keep our foot on the gas.
Okay, I think I have one more, and don't worry, it's a grand finale. Okay. And I just have to say again, thank you everybody in the chat. I can't keep up with it, but sharing stories, connecting with each other, sharing resources, it's wonderful to see. So this is something we've talked about a lot this week, but Creative Cauldron's current site is owed to the gentrification of the Tinner Hill area. For those of you who don't know, that's what the arch, the Tinner Hill arch is. It doesn't represent that always, but it does represent now. There's the divide between the City of Falls Church and the Greater Falls Church area. We're sitting in some gentrification. What are y'all's thoughts on using the arts to change the face of gentrification? And is it possible that the arts could change the nature of race relations? If so, what's happening? What needs to happen?
That's a great question.
And that's my speech.
I'll start. Because what I have to say is that I feel like, unfortunately, the arts have been used as a weapon to support gentrification a lot of the time. That first a theater goes in, and then the restaurants come, and the housing prices go up. And then the
ticket sales for the theater go up?
Yeah. So while I would love to be able to say that the arts could change it, we first have to de-weaponize it in terms of it being used for the support of gentrification. And that's in particular performing arts. Can arts really eliminate racism? The optimist in me wants to say yes so badly, but I really do feel like oftentimes the people will self-select themselves into or out of things that will challenge their thoughts and the way they see the world. And I feel like the arts is like an obligation that, as you know, artists in general, not just the performing arts, we do have an obligation on some level to challenge the way people see the world, to challenge the way people see themselves. Unfortunately, people that don't want to open their eyes won't. But I really, really wish that I could say that we were powerful enough to get people to actually do that. You know, the people who want to learn will. And I think that we saw a lot of that with everything that happened since, when was dude elected? 45. I'm not gonna say his name.
That dude. Oh.
That dude, yeah.
Which dude?
16.
That dude, 45. You know, where people like chose to believe lies and are still choosing to believe lies instead of seeking, you know, real fact, real truth. And you know, if people choose to believe the lie and stick to the lie, I mean, there's nothing that the arts can really do, you know.
Well, I'm gonna keep it 100 because that's what I do. The arts have to make money. That's the bottom line. So we're going to select the shows that make money. We're going to select the artists that can bring the house. Were the shows written by anyone of minority descent? Musical theater? Absolutely not. We have to make money in the arts. And until we decide to hire Black playwrights, Latino playwrights, Asian playwrights, and come away from Roger and them, Bernstein and them.
That's true.
And here's the thing, Lin-Manuel is not the only Latino that's writing shows. Find the people that's writing them that can represent the minority people. And until they want to take a chance and come away from making money because Carousel makes money, let's be clear. And so we're going to hire the white girl that kicks her leg up to 12 o'clock because she sells out the seats. We're going to keep doing Color Purple because that's all everybody knows. That's all they think we can do. Hire the black playwright so we can talk about stuff that's relevant today and not ages ago. But we want to make money. Theaters were online talking about Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. We with y'all. And still got the same 2 black girls that they know in DC performing on the stage. It's so many black girls that are phenomenal in DC. Do they get work? No, they don't get work. No. So many black boys, young men, here. We don't have to go to New York City. It's artists that are unemployed here that need work. Musicians that need work here. But the pits are filled with white folks. The conductor, white man. And so until we come away from, I have to make money. Money is what's going to pack the seats. How do you know? You didn't try. You didn't try. So it's going to continue to be racist. Half of the shows that is out there anyway are racist anyway. Written by people that didn't like black folks, no way. Do your homework. And so I have totally lost hope in the arts since the pandemic hit. And hence the reason why, if I have to stay up to 2 a.m. to write every last play to make sure that black girls, black sisters, black brothers, my sisters over there that love us got work, then that's what I'll do. If they don't ever hire me again, I got a Helen Hayes already. I'm on Google, I'm good. I still would like the work though.
And the check.
And the check. Sis is good equity, that good check. But the fact is what? Somebody got to write the shows. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't write the shows, unfortunately, we may not find work. So that's my spiel. Sorry.
Don't apologize. That's what we asked for.
I will say, I agree with everything you've said about the performing arts.
It's sad.
And my housemates and I actually talk about this a lot, that if you want to change the world, go work for social justice organizations. Theaters are inherently not social justice organizations. No. The one thing I will say is that I also consider literature art. And I do think books have the power to change people and change hearts and minds.
Yes.
When I was in high school, I'm from Alabama. Throughout the state, there are so many books we were required to read. We had to read Their Eyes Were Watching God, A Lesson Before Dying, like Letters from a Birmingham Jail. We had to read a lot of what we, race relations books, To Kill a Mockingbird because it's Alabama, gotta read it. And honestly, making 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old, overwhelmingly white high schoolers read books about race and from different perspectives literally did change hearts and minds. And I do believe that the written word, and if you can get them to the theater, because it is self-selecting, if you can get someone to the theater and you do something innovative and you can get them there, I do believe that yes, the arts could potentially have the ability to change someone's mind, but as things stand, arts are not social justice organizations, and I see your solidarity statements, all of the theaters doing the Black Lives Matter, and we're in intermission, and now you're doing Grease. We see you. We see you.
Come on, Amber.
Yeah, and I will piggyback on that. I think that the arts is probably the most powerful in terms of changing people for young people.
Yes.
The more that young people are exposed, the more that they have the power to actually change, and then as adults, they will change.
And let me say, the young people are.
Oh, yeah.
Because I live in the house with a Marcus Garvey. Okay?
Come on.
When I tell you the young people, if we're not going to do it, they definitely are going to do it. Bring change. Yeah, for sure.
And I think even with the young people, and I was in the arts when I was coming up as a kid, and I think you're right. I think it doesn't change your mind, but it changes your heart.
Yeah.
And so you're able to, if you're a kid or a student who doesn't like to read or can't focus, and I think right now we see this generation that won't pick up a book to save their life, but they're so creative, and they want to do things on YouTube, and they want to do things in the arts. They want to create music. They want to create anything on these TikToks. I mean, they're the most creative we've ever seen them to be on a digital platform. So they have what it takes, and I think if we could get them to see these stories come to life in a different way, I think we could definitely change their heart and give them history that they can take and do something with it.
And all that to say, representation matters. It matters. I could honestly say, this is a weird thing. I am like a deep alto. And the first time I heard a woman hit a low note on stage, because I was so used to these like belting in the rafters. My mother's a soprano. I was like, it's me. It's me. I could pursue a career in the arts because there's roles for me. And it's such a small thing. And I have to believe that like every child of color is just waiting for someone, and like disabled people are just waiting for the chance to go, that's me, I can do this. And if we want to foster the arts for the future, we need to give children role models, and that means changing how you cast.
Oh my.
I want, like, honestly, I want less opportunities. I want less opportunities for me. Quit calling me in. I can list like multiple black women who are also altos who will take those roles and be great at them. Like, I want to work, but honestly, like, my wanting to work is less important than representation. So.
She still need a check. Don't listen to her. She still need a check.
And deserves one.
And deserves one. That's right.
But I think that's great to think about. We can take some of these stories and reimagine what that role could be like, and not have it be the black version. But just having it be a new version or a different version or an updated version so that people can see themselves in the stories.
But isn't that something to say? Most of them, they can't because of the history of the show, the story of the show. So you can't put a black woman in there if the town didn't like black women.
If it's a line in the show. But that being said, black people were all over Shakespeare's time. There were black people all over the place. There were black people in Elizabethan England. There are so many roles. And also theater is playing pretend. The arts are playing pretend. Yes. There is no reason that Elizabeth Bennet cannot be a black woman. There's no reason. There's no reason. We're playing pretend.
That's right. That's good. How are you, Ellen?
We could go all night, but we are out of time.
Yes, we can go all night. Wait, can I say one thing? I want to plug my sister, I got you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to plug my sister Jules' podcast and how we can get in touch with Jules, because she is fierce and phenomenal, and that's what I do. I plug the sisters, okay? So tell us how we can follow you real quick.
So you guys can find me. I'm on every Thursday night at 10 p.m. I co-host a podcast called Clapback Culture. It is a podcast that is directed to the culture, and we talk about black issues. So we take everything from trending topics and political issues, and we convert them into conversations that you would have in the beauty salon, at the barbershop. And so we say we're pro-black and anti-nobody. So we want Democrats, we want Republicans, we want independents, we want people who represent everything. And so we have a lot of spicy conversation, but it's conversation that's unbiased, unfiltered, and we want to bring it to you. So you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Treasure of Jules. Follow me on there, and whereweconverge.com, and you can find the show there.
And you going to be on my podcast coming up. We got to put a date together.
Amen.
Sisterconversation.com.
And all of these handles and websites, anything that the folks want to share, will be online at creativecauldron.org.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, we could let this conversation go on all night, and I've got some follow-up questions for you, Ayanna, that as we go through our journey here at Creative Cauldron. You've been gracious enough to agree to be on what we're calling our Jedi community, because we're trying to put together a circle of artists to help us navigate and rethink the way we do the performing arts. Rethink it. What kept coming to mind as you were talking was, you know, the phrase that Ibram Kendi used in his book, capitalism and racism are conjoined twins. And as we're going through in our country right now, you know, there's some stuff being tried to be being done, i.e. a bill that would be passed that's considering infrastructure. Child care is infrastructure. But we're in this kind of like, no, it's too big, too much money to spend. Certainly it was okay to give some huge tax breaks and people getting richer and richer and richer, but it's somehow just a little bit of a bridge too far to make childcare available. We got to get together. That's where we have to find allyship and understand that is what at least starts to change things. It's about where the money is and where the power is. And you're absolutely right. As somebody who's tried to figure out ways to do, you know, meaningful productions and things, but you learn, oh, gee, this is a great production. We did a play, I keep mentioning this, Tinner Hill Portraits in Black and White, that actually talks about the racist history of Falls Church here. We did it early on in our tenure here, and you know what? It was well received by the 5 people who came. And then you find yourself one day saying, well, I guess I have to do something like Disney's Beauty and the Beast. Because you're right, it's a commodity, it's a product. And that is why I've said, we need you, our audience, to go on this journey with us, to be curious and interested, and to, when we do a production that's written by Black artists or Black productions, we need you to be just as interested in that as Disney's Beauty and the Beast. That's how we change the model. I've committed to stop writing big checks going forward. We have some commitments that we have to do because we've already paid the money for. But commissioning more artists as opposed to writing a nice big fat check to the royalty company. Sorry, MTI. Sorry. No, that is how we start to change the structures, is to take a look at where the money is and where the power is, and how do we rethink it together as artists and audience. So thank you. Sorry, that was my speech. Thank you for this astonishing evening. Astonishing evening, Iyona, Angelisa, Jules, Tiana, Amber. This was so important to have this conversation. I hope you in the audience were moved to keep thinking, keep growing. And this is definitely something we're going to try to keep in our programming, this difficult conversations, because I think we're going to keep having difficult conversations. And while the arts don't solve it all, at least maybe, it was my hope, it can be a better place to have the conversation than social media.
Fair. Deeply fair.
Where everybody gets in their own little corners and doesn't try to understand. Maybe we can open it up, try to create some empathy for one another, and yeah, figure out how to move forward. So thank you, everybody. So a lot. Thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you to everybody who supports us, generous donors with open hearts. who've made this possible. Thank you. We really appreciate you now and going forward, especially right now. We have anything else to say, Ellen, that we should tell people about? This is going to be recorded, right? This has been recorded. Yes. So for those of you that would like to share it, it'll be up on our website probably next week. Takes a little while to get it going. Right?
Find out everything upcoming and when these performances are online and what we're up to next at creativecauldron.org.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.